going 7-9, okay? I'm not going 7-9. I'm not going 7-9. I'm not going 7-9.
Welcome to the Grueling Truth LA Rams 2.0 weekly show, brought to you by thegruelingtruth.net and Gridiron Mo, an interesting new interactive football game app which pits you against other football fans across the country in predicting the next play within live NFL games. Think you're smarter than the average fan? See for yourself at Gridiron Mo through thegruelingtruth.net or directly at gridironmo.com. My name is Oz Davis. I'm the co-host of the LA Rams 2.0 show here, and joining me as co-host, as always, is former Notre Dame, Buffalo Bills, and Los Angeles Rams great Tony Hunter. Tony, how you doing today?
All doing just great. Everything's going fine. So glad to have my former teammate Henry Ellard join us on the show.
Ah, that's right. There you go. You stole my thunder. I was going to do the credit roll. Let me do the credit roll really quick. Henry Ellard, the former wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams and a couple of other teams in the 1980s and 90s. During that time, he had 7 seasons of 1,000 or more receiving yards. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time first-time All-Pro, and he has been a receivers coach as well for the St. Louis Rams, the New York Jets, and the New Orleans Saints. Now I can tell you, thank you for joining the show, Henry.
Thank you.
And how are things going for you today?
They've been awesome. You know, I'm just hanging out with the family. You know, I have a couple of daughters that's playing basketball right now, so I'm a cheerleader.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, I wanted to just get right into it. I have a question for the both of you. I wanted to ask you the obvious question first. You both came up in the NFL in the same year, 1983. So you're contemporaries. Tony came over to Los Angeles in 1985. And I got to ask you guys, okay, so what did you guys know about each other before you met, and what were your first impressions?
Let me answer that first. You know what? When I got to the Rams and I started watching Henry, I said, man, this guy's good. And I had just come from Buffalo, where Jerry Butler, you remember him, don't you, Henry?
Yeah.
Jerry Butler was a Pro Bowl wide receiver there. He was good. And but later on, I went on and tried out with San Diego, and Anthony Miller was up there, you know, world-class speed. But I have to say, to this day, Henry Ellard is the best receiver teammate that I've ever had. And Henry was unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll make sure I put the check in the mail to you.
Yeah, Henry was something else. So as far as it seemed like Henry, you seem to have a real good feel for coverages, understanding coverages. And I mean, as far as your quickness, getting in and out of breaks, I had never seen that before. But do you think your time at Fresno State, did they have the kind of offense? It was a pro-style offense where you got a chance to really get a good foundation as far as understanding coverages. Where did that come from?
Yeah, no doubt. Fresno State, we had a pro-style passing attack. So we were throwing the ball down the field my junior and my senior year and had a lot of fun. And, of course, the hire they just made at head coach, Jeff Tedford, was my college quarterback at Fresno State. So we had a lot of history together. But we ran a lot of pro-style routes. I mean, from the hitch to the slant to the speed out to the deep end to the push. We did it all. So it really
you can see it. Yeah, I could see it. You could see it. Go ahead.
So yeah,
Still there?
Just geared me and got me ready. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so because I could definitely see it because you just seem to have a really good understanding of coverages in that. Now, do you think? Okay, I mean, yeah, you have Hall of Fame numbers, Henry. Hall of Fame numbers. You played what, 16 years? Was it?
Yeah, 16.
That's unbelievable. That's a long time for a wide receiver to play in the NFL. And you better know what you're doing if you play that long in the NFL, and Henry did.
Right, no doubt. When you play against a guy like Ronnie Lott, you want to know where he is on the field at all times.
Yeah.
I can remember our game against San Francisco up there, where you were going against Ronnie Lott, and man, that was those were some unbelievably fun times.
No doubt. You look for that rivalry, within your division, and San Fran was that rival for us, and in the games you live for. That's for sure, because we're all trading off. They had a dominance at one time, but then we start fighting back. We beat them up there at times, and it was great times.
Yes.
Yeah, those.
So I was looking at some of your numbers here, Henry, and it's unbelievable. 16 years as a player. You've actually been coaching now for, 14 years?
Yeah, I coached for 14 years, exactly.
Yeah, but your stats, as far as a player is concerned, is Hall of Fame worthy. Now, are you on the ballot right now as far as getting in that Hall of Fame where you should be?
I haven't gotten to the finals yet. I've gotten up to that point, but I just haven't made that next transition, so hopefully that'll come.
It should, definitely.
Yeah. Hopefully it will come. And
before we go any further, I want to go back to the question you asked at the beginning, of course, because I want to give my spill on Tony, of course.
Oh.
And the thing I remember about Tony coming up, back in the day, for us coming out, it wasn't one combine in Indianapolis. We went to 3 different places. I think one was in Tampa. I think another one was in Detroit. And there was one other one that I'm trying to remember where it was. And I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember being at this one combine. And the buzz was this tight end from Notre Dame. Tony, I'm like, what? Okay, I said, watch this guy. And sure enough, I'm watching this guy running these. I'm just like, man, he can play wide out. I'm like, okay. I was truly impressed. That was my first impression, of course, of Tony, not knowing him, just knowing Notre Dame and who are these guys talking about. And sure enough, he was that guy. And just watching him run around some things like that, I just like, wow, okay. I didn't realize we didn't have a tight end like that, so I had no idea until I started to watch Tony. And I just like, okay. And
I remember those days, being at the combines and all the wide receivers from around the country. You play wide out at Notre Dame, then you used to play wide out. You tight end now? And we're like, yeah. They were really impressed that I played wide receiver at Notre Dame, and now I'm playing tight end. So
right,
yeah.
And you can see that in your route running, and that makes a lot of sense, because I didn't know that part of it, that you'd actually play wide out, but it makes sense in what I've seen on the field when you're working out at the combine. And especially
and you know what, Henry, and looking back on it, hindsight right now, man, I ended up playing hurt for the entire time I was with the Rams, Henry. I had a torn meniscus in my knee that they kind of they had the wrong diagnosis for it. And I remember hurting it like the first day I was with the Rams. We were doing reach drill with the linebackers. And Mike Wilcher, I'm wrestling with Mike Wilcher, and twisted my knee, and they just kind of went on and treated it, and they told me to keep the muscles around the kneecap strong, and you should be fine. Right. But it got progressively worse, man, and I could just see my level of play just going down. So if there's anything I regret about the NFL, it's not being able to be healthy when I was with the Rams.
Yeah, and the times, of course, was a little different back then than it is nowadays. That's for sure when it comes to things like that.
Oh, man, you couldn't get a second opinion.
Right. Right, exactly.
You'd be out of a job.
Yeah, so you just try to play through it, and it's sure enough.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let's talk about opinions. I got one for you guys. Okay, so let's talk about a contemporary of yours on the Rams. Let's talk about Eric Dickerson, okay, who is in the Hall of Fame, right? He's unquestionably a Hall of Famer. Right. I wanted to ask about him because, of course, anybody who's following the Rams, anybody who's paying attention, knows that there's been this sort of, argument between Mr. Dickerson and head coach Jeff Fisher. Apparently, as I understand, quick recap, as I understand it, Jeff Fisher called him on the phone, told him in a conversation that he didn't want him on the sidelines of the Rams anymore because his comments His comments were making players, quote, uncomfortable. And that's what gets me. Now, we can go many ways with this one, but I guess I'll just throw that one out there first. Do you guys believe that comments that Mr. Dickerson are making the players, quote, unquote, uncomfortable?
As an NFL player, you don't pay attention to the comments saying you shouldn't.
Right.
As a professional player, you can't let that affect you. For one, so that tells you, it's a little different with the mindset nowadays than it is back in the day. But if anybody knows that, Eric's going to speak his mind now.
That's what I was going to say, Henry, definitely.
Yes, Eric's going to speak his mind. And, he's been around the game. He's a student of the game. He understands the game. That's for sure. And that's part of the business. You gotta have a tough skin because it's just part of it. It's what's going to happen, especially being in L.A., going to be in New York in these big media areas.
Right.
It's part of it. You go out and play and do your job. You don't have to worry about it.
That's right. And if Eric says he's not going to any more Rams game in the Coliseum, Eric's not going to go to any more Rams games at the Coliseum.
As long as Fisher is the coach. Yeah.
Right.
That's what. And Eric's a guy that's going to stick to his guns. He did that back when he was holding out as a player back with the. I don't know what that's all about. We both went through that situation. That's for sure. So I don't expect to see him on the sidelines anytime soon.
Right. Now, you were actually quoted today, Henry, in the Los Angeles Daily News about that whole contract thing in the 1980s with Eric. Can you tell us something about that? What's the story in brief there? As far as I can tell from Tony and some other players from these teams, the Rams ownership really cheaped out on the players, didn't they?
Oh, I'll tell you bottom line. It was bad. It wasn't about, John Shaw, who was the guy that the main negotiator at that point in time, he'll tell you straight to your face that, he's a numbers guy and stats is not necessarily a thing that he pays attention to. Eric was well underpaid. Everybody knows that.
Definitely.
And that's kind of where it all started. With the records he set and where he was in comparison to other running backs around the league, he was well underpaid. Mm-hmm. And at that time, we didn't have any free agency. Plan B finally started coming in later on, but we didn't have anything you can deal with.
Right.
And Eric just made a decision. Look, I'm being well underpaid. He carried us on his back the first 4 years, and we wouldn't have gone to any playoffs if it wasn't for Eric. That's for sure. But yet he wasn't being compensated for the kind of player that he is and the numbers he was putting up. And it was a tough situation for all of us. And then when they traded him, the rest of us looked at each other. If they're going to trade our franchise player,
right?
What's going to happen to us?
What's going to happen to me? Exactly.
I'm just like, oh, my goodness. And sure enough, going in from my third to my fourth year, I held out half a season dealing with the same situation.
I remember that.
I ended up coming back playing the last 8 games of the year. And sure enough, things worked out to my advantage where sure enough we finally worked out a contract. But Eric, of course, was traded off to, I believe, to Indianapolis at that time.
Yeah.
The Rams had a tough negotiator. What was his name? Was it John Shaw?
John Shaw. That was it, John Shaw.
Yeah, he was a tough negotiator. But I've read somewhere where he was saying, well, a lot of the players were saying, the Rams just don't have the money. I can remember having that conversation. But I saw a quote where John Shaw was like, the Rams had a more recent quote from him where he said, the Rams had the money, but we just had we had the players over the barrel. They couldn't go anywhere. So
exactly, and that's how it was. And it was frustrating as a player because you had no leverage,
right?
At all. So it was tough. Yeah, it was tough in that situation and watching, what Eric had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a tough time. I remember that time, and I can remember one time Eric had a quote in the paper where he said 46 gap was one of his best plays. He had a lot of success with that play, and he was saying, John Robinson's making more money than me. Why don't you let John run the 46 gap?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is right.
They ran the quote in the Daily Times story that Henry was quoted in. Yeah, they have that in there. It's a good. It's online now. Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's go. Coming back to this one for a moment, Henry. Okay, so you've actually been on both sides of this equation because you've been a member of coaching staff and you've been a player.
Right.
What is, because you guys before made it sound like, the players aren't going to take this kind of comment seriously. They're not going to take it to heart or whatnot. So what is Jeff Fisher doing here? What is he doing banning this guy, one of the all-time great Rams, maybe the all-time great Los Angeles Rams, from the sidelines? What's going on here?
I wish I could tell you. I have no idea. I have no idea.
It's about criticizing Fisher, isn't it? It's about criticizing Fisher.
You figure it has to be. And I mean, it's tough. It really is, and again, it's part of the business. It's going to happen, especially when things are not going well. I mean, the Rams, to me, they're in a tough situation to make a move like they have, from St. Louis to L.A. For one,
right.
I guarantee you the players are still trying to get over the cost of living adjustment. Because, oh, my goodness. To go from L.A. to St. Louis, it's a whole other situation to go from St. Louis to L.A.
Right.
I mean, because the cost of living and the taxes, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Now, are you in L.A. now, Hop, or are you living in L.A. now?
No, I live in San Antonio, Texas, thank goodness.
Oh, you're in San Antonio, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
How in the world did you get to San Antonio, Texas from Fresno, California?
I just, when I coached my last year in New Orleans, my wife and I were talking about what do we want to call home. And we said we didn't want to go back to California because of the taxes and just the cost of living is just too crazy, along with the traffic. So what happened is I have a 19-year-old decided to go to Trinity University, which is in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And that was an accident on the case because I have my mother-in-law lives out here as well. So I wanted to bring the girls out here so they can be around their grandmother. And while she went to Trinity University, she's close to home. So it made it an easy transition for us to move to San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice part of the country. Let me ask you this, Henry. You've got today's players. You've got some great wide receivers that are in the game right now. Odell Beckham Jr., A.J. Green, just to name two of them. Yeah. Who would you consider is the best receiver in the game right now, the top receivers in the game?
The way I look at it, when we talk about top, I look at the consistency of which a guy plays and the level he makes. He makes plays. That's what I consider. Guys separate guys the good from the great players. The Dez Bryants of the world. He's coming. He's fighting injuries, but when he's out there on the field, I tell you what, he's making plays, which we saw just the other night.
And he's a beast.
That nice play. I tell you what. Now I just love everything about him.
Yeah.
All around guy. Beckham is getting there. He's just got to learn how to control his emotions.
He's quick.
He's letting the DB get in his head though, and he gets emotional, and it takes him out of his game. The best guy I've seen as of late, A.J. Green, is one of those guys I love because he don't see a whole lot. He reminds me a lot of Isaac Bruce, where he'll go out and play the game and won't see a whole lot and just do his thing. Another guy that's like that is Brown in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll go out there and make play time and time again. So you got a handful of guys out there, I tell you what, that's playing at a high level on a consistent basis.
Yeah, they've taken that one-hand catch and stuff. Back in our day, I don't think I remember you seeing it, practicing catching that ball with one hand, but, man, Odell Beckham Jr. makes it look like he's catching with two hands with those big mitts.
That's it, because his hands are so large. I remember meeting him for the first time when I went out to LSU for pro day and shaking his. Well, him and Landry both have huge hands.
Is that right?
You shake his hand, this thing's wrapped all the way around to the backside of your wrist. And you understand why they're able to make those catches with the one hand, because their hands are so big.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Back in our time, we didn't really – I know I didn't really practice on making that one-hand catch like that. But
no, not at all.
After you get to the pros and you start seeing those quarterbacks like Leroy Irvin grab one of your arms as you're trying to catch a football.
Yeah. Right.
He had that down to a science where he could be running with you and just kind of reach down and grab one of your arms and say, if you catch it, you're going to catch him with one hand.
Right. And that's the way you did it. And as a coach, I started to really work a drill with my guys to do that because sure enough, pushing down the field on a go round down the sideline and hip to hip, that DB's going to try to pin your inside arm.
That's right. Right.
You have to reach out and try to catch it with one hand.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So now, wow, 16 years playing, 14 years coaching. I tell you what, you're an NFL lifer, my friend. That's a long time in the NFL. And when I first came out, I had invested in some property here in Cincinnati, and I ran a property management company for like 25 years. But as I look back on it, I said, man, I should have stayed involved with football a bit more. I know more about that than anything, but do you feel like it's been just that NFL, just working with the NFL that long, do you feel like it was a thing for you to do?
Yeah, and the funny part about it is I never planned on coaching. Somebody asked me at the end of my career, you ought to think about coaching. I said I will never coach.
Yeah, right.
But I could learn never to say never. But the way it happened for me, once I retired after the 98 season, I went back to Southern California and was just living there, and I'm a busybody. I got to be doing something. I was driving my wife crazy. She's like, you need to do something with yourself. There's only so much golf you can play. So what I did is I was working out one day at a YMCA and opened up this article and read about this small Christian high school in Southern California who had hired a coach. And 2 weeks before it was going to start up, the coach walked away from it. My heart went out to these kids. I said, I'm going to keep track of this story. If they hire themselves a head coach, I'm going to go volunteer.
Wow.
They hired themselves a head coach, and I went over and I introduced myself to him, and I volunteered. That's how I actually got into coaching because I had no plans to coach at all.
Wow.
And I did that for 2 years at the high school level. I said, you know what, I kind of like this a little bit. So I called up my former coach, Pat Hill, at Fresno State, and said, Coach, I'm thinking about this coaching thing. I want to come up there for a year and volunteer. And that was in 2000. Moved up there to Fresno. Fell in love. I say, this is good for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and after I went through that 2000 season, Mike Martz, who recruited me out of high school to Fresno State, who was a coach at Fresno State at the time, took the head coaching job. Of course, from going from coordinator, Dick Vermeil retired, he took over the head coaching job. He called me when he found out I was in coaching. Said, Henry, why don't you come out here for a year, see what you think about it? Talked to my wife. We prayed about it. Sure enough, made the move to St. Louis, and this is history from there 14 years later. It was a great ride. I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. And that's a great way. You started on the ground floor basically from coming from the NFL and then going back to high school and getting your start in coaching that way. That's the way you do it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it was at the time I questioned myself, what in the world am I doing here? Because the talent wasn't quite as good there. We had maybe 16 guys trying to play 11-man football, half the guys that never played before. But I wouldn't change it for I wouldn't change it for anything in the world because it was a great experience for me as well as, working with these kids and watching them grow and blossom as players, and I enjoyed every bit of it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, we'll talk some contemporary Rams in just a minute, but I got one more question for you, Henry. I want to go back to the 80s again for a moment and set this up a little bit. I do another podcast here, thegruelingtruth.net, with a guy that you may have heard of before, a guy by the name of Dieter Brock. And there's sort of this unwritten rule here at The Grueling Truth where we can't talk about one specific game. But there's no unwritten rule for you guys about this. So let me ask you, the conference championship game after the 1985 season, you go in, you stomp the Cowboys, Eric Dickerson gets 248 yards, whatever.
Eric stomped the Cowboys, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Soldier Field, everything falls apart. Against what is, one of the great teams of the 80s. Okay, for sure. But what happened? What happened in this game?
we ran into the 4-6 defense, the Buddy Ryan defense is what happened.
Yep. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, and the funny part about it going to Chicago, the first half of the game, actually the weather was mild. I mean, it was 65 degrees. We're like, oh man, this is great.
Right.
And we were plugging along for a little bit, and then I think Marshall caused a fumble, and it picked it up and started rumbling. And from that point on, the tide just started to turn. I mean, the cloud cover came over. It started snowing. The temperature dropped another 20 degrees, and we were done. But you got to give them a lot of credit because that defense was rallying. Now they were flying around making plays. That's for sure. Matter of fact, I ended up injuring my ribs in that game on the punt return.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the best defense that I saw. They were.
I'll tell you what.
The thing about that defense, they were never out of place. There was always people in the right places. Nobody was ever out of place.
Right. No doubt. I mean, they rallied around. They had everybody. I mean, as a matter of fact, I want to say Fisher was on that team at that time.
Right. I remember that.
If I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, you got to give them a lot of credit. And, of course, they went on and won the Super Bowl. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They ruled in that Super Bowl. Okay.
You know what, though, Henry? One thing that I just want to get your opinion on this. One thing that's not talked about as much for that 85 Bears defense, and I think it was really the foundation of that defense, that defensive line, because you remember we had a great offensive line with Jackie Slater and Dennis Hare, and we had some Pro Bowlers along that line. But I thought they had fits with that defense, big Dan Hampton refrigerator. Yeah. I thought they had fits that day with that defensive line.
Yeah, Richard Dent. I mean, they had some guys now. That's for sure. Yeah. Battle was in the trenches, but they just got the best of us that day. Cause we, of course, that's what's nice about playing at home. In that situation, and they definitely took advantage of it and did a great job.
Definitely.
All right, let's come 30 years into the present here. Let's talk about this year's Rams. Okay, Henry, from the outside, Tony and I have said it. I think everybody's saying the same thing. The offensive line is weak. Case Keenum can't throw the deep ball. Now, you've actually coached passing games in the NFL. What kind of insights can you give us on the problems this Rams passing game has?
Well, if you don't have the time to throw it, you're going to struggle.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's part of the game. Like fortunately, when I played and in some of the places I've coached, we had a great offensive line that gave the quarterback time to throw the ball down the field. And when the quarterback doesn't have that time and you disrupt it, the timing of it, it makes it tough. Especially now where they have the young quarterback in there who's kind of learning on the run, which is not an easy thing to do. And I think the way defenses are lining up against the Rams and saying, we're going to force you to throw the ball down the field. We're going to stop your run. You got Gurley in the backfield. We're going to stop your run. We know he had a good running back. Force this young quarterback to make plays down the field. And then, the quarterbacks and the receivers, they work hand in hand. They struggle a little bit on the outside. You got Austin who's done some good things, who's come along as a receiver. It took him a little time, I think, to get there. Brett, of course, is that guy that's really the go-to guy in a lot of situations. He's on the older side, so you got to beef up that receiving core is really what it comes down to. If you want a quarterback who's going to be able to throw the ball down there, you got to get guys that have to get open.
I agree. Now, from what I've seen, from the little bit that I've seen of Goff so far, I'm impressed with him. I think he's got a really nice arm. I love his ball placement. And what do you think about it? What are your initial thoughts of Goff?
And I would agree. I would give Jeff Fisher and the coaching staff a thumbs up on waiting and not forcing him into the fire. They waited around, let him sit back, let him watch, because he wasn't ready early on. Listening to the comments and some of the stuff they were talking about, he just wasn't ready. And they realized that, and they held him back and let him sit and let him watch. And that's probably one of the best things that could have happened for him. But now it's time, okay, let's get him in, let him get going. And I think it's really helped him in his development and putting him in that situation to make plays. Because you see him make some plays. That's for sure. Now,
just threw 3 touchdown passes in his second start?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he's just on the job training now is what it comes down to, and he's going to learn as he go along. from this point on is what it's all about. But I think it was crucial the way they held him out and waited before they started putting him in and letting him play. But the timing, I agree.
I agree with that too, Henry.
Yeah. The three touchdown passes is important because I think that's as many as the Rams had in the past 6 or 7 games combined. So he may not have had a lot of long balls in this game, but just having, those connections in the end zone, I think is important.
And I think that's why playmakers important. That way you don't have to necessarily always throw the ball down the field. Put the ball in the guy's hand like an Austin and let him do his thing. Make
I like Tavon. I like Tavon Austin.
Yes.
Yeah. He's our Swiss Army knife is Tavon Austin. He can do it all. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
It was just
okay. Sorry. Okay. So one of the knocks on this team has been that they've played a lot of boring games this season. I'll tell you, last week things were exciting, especially if you're a Saints fan. New Orleans Saints 49, Los Angeles Rams 21. At least we can score. I just wanted to get this in. Hey, Tony, I guess we can't give any kudos to the defense this week, huh?
Oh, sure.
Usually,
you know what? I mean, just a lot of injuries on that side of the ball, David.
Yeah. And we lost our nickel corner to the Dewey charge. That didn't help. You really saw that last game. Couldn't make a tackle downfield last game. Really, really hurt us on the defense, I thought, against, Drew Brees. Can't do that. So, hey, this week we get the New England Patriots. All right. So
now, did you coach? Did you play in New England for a while too, Henry?
I was right at the end of my career. I went to New England for like 5 weeks, and the only reason I went to New England, I was a free agent going into the '98 season, and I had nobody that picked me up right away. I just continued to work out. But Ernie Zampese, who was our coordinator with the Rams, ended up becoming a coordinator with New England that year. And I owe my career to Ernie, really, because once he came in and brought in that Eric Coryell offense, my career just really took off from that point on.
Really took off. With Jim Everett, you caught more passes with Jim Everett than anybody, didn't you?
Right, no doubt. And then once he called me from New England, they lost Terry Glenn, they lost Vincent Brixby, were the 2 receivers that went down, so they needed a guy to come in. I knew Ernie offense like the back of my hand. So they called me, and I flew in on a Tuesday, worked out. Well, no, I flew in Monday night and worked out on Tuesday. They signed me to a contract. I started on Sunday, and so he did, and he was up front with me, saying, look, we need you here for about 5 weeks till we get our guys back. And then, we'll kind of see what goes from there. Sure enough, they got their guys back. They say, okay, thank you. And the funny part about that, right after I finished and they released me, Norv Turner called me from Washington, where I had played prior, the 4 years prior to that. They had lost a guy. I think Westbrook went down. He said, well, why don't you come out here for the last 3 weeks and finish out the season? So I went from New England back to New Washington and finished out my season and retired after that.
Okay, Norv was the tight end coach with the Rams when I was there, when we were there.
Yeah, exactly. And he even coached receivers at one point in time, but so we go way back.
Oh, we go back. He recruited me out of high school here in Cincinnati to go to USC.
Oh,
I mean, he lived here in Cincinnati. And I was really interested in going. And but he recruited me out of high school. And I tell you, that first year I went to summer camp and he was my tight end coach. Man, he was on me so hard. I said, I think this is payback for me not going to USC.
Right. Sure enough. Norv's a good man.
Yes, he is, definitely. And you mentioned Ernie Zampese. His I think it's his grandson that's the quarterback coach here in Cincinnati.
He's a coordinator.
He's a coordinator. That's right.
He's a coordinator. Yeah, he's been the quarterback coach for like the last 13 years, and finally he's gotten that chance to be a coordinator. So he's a coordinator now.
Hey, I tell you, he learned from one of the great ones, Ernie Zampese.
Oh no, and I tell you what, Kenny is sharp. He is sharp. I've coached with him with the Rams. Yeah, with the Mike Marsh staff, and I mean he is sharp. He really is a big after his dad, that's for sure. It's just a matter of getting that opportunity now. He's finally gotten that opportunity.
Yeah.
So let's see. So I don't know Henry, if it's always been this way, but Tony is well known on this show and at thegruelingtruth.net as a tremendous optimist. So I'm putting your optimism to the test here. I mean, okay, so the Patriots are missing their Tony Hunter. They're missing Gronk for this week. Does this help us at all, Tony? What kind of a shot do the Rams have this week? We're playing in New England, no less.
They're missing Gronk, but they still have that big guy at tight end. Man, he's playing good football right now.
Martellus Bennett, yeah. He's
Right. I think you see more of the type of player that he is now that he's with New England, Bill Belichick in New England. Oh, man, he's a beast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's one of those guys. I've been saying this all over the network. I mean, he's one of these guys who his value is not appearing on the stat sheet at all. You know, there are games where he catches the ball maybe 3 times, but he's the most important player on the field whenever he's out there. You know, he's blocking, he's running, decoy routes. I mean, he's just doing it all out there. He's just been fantastic.
He's something else.
Mm-hmm. He definitely has talent, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, the New England defense has been a little suspect this season. They did okay against the Jets, but it was the Jets. And I'm wondering if maybe we might see a little bit more from Mr. Goff this week. What do you think, Henry? Possible?
It's a chance, but you got to understand who's on the other side coaching that team. As well.
Yeah.
You're talking about a guy that can talk about scripting and doing what he needs to do to shut down a team. It's this coach, that's for sure. So, I mean, the defense just has to play well. That's what it comes for the Rams. That's what it's going to come down to kind of contain Brady, get pressure on it. Don't let him get in his comfort zone. Because if he gets in that comfort zone, boy, he'll eat you alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can see Bill Belichick throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Jared Goff, and he knows exactly how to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. It's so tough to put, unless you're Tom Coughlin or the Seattle Seahawks, it's tough to put a spin on the Patriots are coming. You know, it's tough to be positive about that. They always seem to find a way, and I think I think they're on the way to 14-2 this season. Wouldn't you say so, Henry?
I'll tell you what, they just find a way to win. Mm-hmm. And no matter what the situation, no matter who the guys are, I mean, they just find a way to win. Even Tom Brady not playing in the first part of the year.
Right.
I mean, also, I think, one game at that point in time, they just know how to rally guys and get guys in place to make plays and to win games, and that's what they've been doing. That's why they've been so successful as a franchise.
Mm-hmm. 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 We'll see if they can do it without Gronk going forward. All right.
Yeah, and he's been out before, so it'll be interesting to see.
All right, Henry, I'll let you get out of here, but I got to get your insight on one more thing. You know, I've been giving Tony a little bit of the business this season because he also does the Notre Dame podcast here.
Oh, boy.
However, there is at least one team in college football that's having a more disappointing season, or had a more disappointing season than Notre Dame. That's those Fresno State Bulldogs. What happened down there?
I'll tell you what, it's been tough. It really has been, and just to try to even watch the game. I mean, one game was on TV, and I said, okay, I'm gonna tune into this thing. And probably after the first quarter, I had to turn it off. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't. But the good thing about it is this hire that they've made with Jeff Titt. I think they got the right guy now. It's a guy that's been in the program. It's a guy that cares about the San Joaquin Valley, which is where Fresno is located, and going to recruit in the area, and he'll develop the quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, is one of those guys that he developed. So he knows.
It's a lot of football talent. It's a lot of football talent in that Fresno area. Is Icky Woods from Fresno?
Yes, he is.
Yes, okay.
Tim McDonald is from Fresno. I mean, we got a lot of guys that's from Fresno. I mean, you look at David Carr, you look at Derek Carr, who's doing well, of course, with Oakland. I mean, we talking about Fresno, so we got talent. But some guys, they feel they got to go outside of the San Joaquin Valley to find talent. When you got the talent right there, you need to keep the talent what you have in your area at home. And that's what Jeff Tepper's planning on doing. I think you're going to see a change in that program.
That's what Miami did down there in Miami. All those guys came from Miami. And, I mean, we used to play against them when I was at Notre Dame. And anytime you play in Miami, whether it be at Notre Dame or whether it be down there, you knew you were going to be in the dog fight the whole game.
Yeah, that is it. Sure enough.
Okay, so Henry, nowadays, are you still coaching nowadays? You are, right?
No, I retired from coaching. I've been out for about a year now.
Oh, you've retired? Wow. All right. So what's next for Henry Ellard then? Where does life begin?
I opened up a residential redevelopment company. I rehab property is what I do.
Okay.
So it's something I always had a passion for as a player, just didn't have the time to put into it to want to do it. And then, of course, as a coach, I definitely couldn't do it because of the 16-hour days you were putting in. So and that was my whole decision once I got towards the end of it and trying to decide, okay, do I want to continue this grind or do I want to hang out with my family, watch my girls, be part of their sports and their activities at school? And that's what I decided. Okay, what can I do to replace, that 16-hour day of the potential of making that same kind of money if I want to. And sure enough, real estate has been great because I have the freedom and the flexibility I need, but yet I can still produce the same kind of income if that's what I choose to do.
Wow, that's nice. Beautiful.
Yeah, I've been doing it the last year and a half, and I'm having a blast.
Very
That's
cool.
great.
Very cool.
Yeah, I tell you what, NFL coaches spend a lot of time at the office.
Yes, you gotta love it. I tell you what, 16-hour days, and I don't miss it. I do not miss it at all.
But your wife doesn't want you hanging around the house all the time. So.
No, and that's a good thing about doing this now. At least I get out for a little while and give her a break.
But not all day. Perfect scenario for Mr. Henry Ellard. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us today, Henry. I totally appreciate it. It's really great. Really great. All right.
I enjoyed it, Hop. I really appreciate it, my man.
All right. Thank you.
Any final words for us today, Tony? No, I tell you what, I really enjoyed Henry being here. I tell you, the Hall of Fame should be waiting on him. If they take a good look at what he's done, there's no doubt he should be in the Hall of Fame, and it's been really an honor to have him on our show.
Fantastic. You heard it here. Henry Ellard for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And for Henry Ellard, our special guest this week, I'm Oz Davis, signing off for my co-host Tony Hunter and the LA Rams 2.0 show. Go Rams!
I'm not going 7-9. Okay?